name's Kenneth Miller. I live at 1306 South Sheffield Street. I'm a member of many different organizations, and every single one of them has, in writing, demanded from our district attorney that he prosecute the police who beat Jordan Miles. And a big part of the reason we're here tonight, and a big part of the frustration that I'm feeling, is that we have a district attorney who refuses to prosecute criminally police who beat and terrify community members. So I want to urge all of you, including the members of Pittsburgh City Council, to go to our website, which is www.justiceforjordanmiles.com, and immediately send an enraged, passionate message demanding justice for Jordan Miles to our district attorney, Stephen Zapala. It's terrible. It really gives us a dead end when we have a district attorney that refuses to prosecute police. And that is another reason why we need greater accountability within the city of Pittsburgh, and another reason why we should pass this legislation. Some of the groups that I'm part of that have demanded justice for Jordan Miles are the Alliance for Police Accountability, my labor union. There are labor unions that believe bad police should go to jail. One of them is the Industrial Workers of the World. I'm a member of that union. Lots of groups in the Thomas Merton Center, everybody affiliated with the Thomas Merton Center is outraged that there's not justice for Jordan Miles, and that it is taking this long to move really clear-cut legislation. None of, to my knowledge, and I've read the bill pretty carefully, I'm sure that there will be minor disputes, but I think everything in this bill is things that Luke Ravenstall could do if he wanted to. So that just makes me so angry, because he pretends to be our friend, he pretends that he cares, he comes out and promises a quick report from OMI, and it's all a bunch of crap. And Luke Ravenstall could do this if he wanted to. So, because he's refusing to take responsibility for reining in the police and confronting the FOP, you have to do it. So you're stuck in this position. You need to stand up in the community, because Luke Ravenstall won't do it for us. And that really sucks for every member of this community. Tonight, the Black and White Reunion is an organization I'm a member of. We held the Summit Against Racism. It feels like a couple days ago, the Saturday after Martin Luther King Day. We have copies of that program booklet tonight. I hope people take one home with them. It has some history of our organization and how connected the case of Jordan Miles is, and the same police accountability issues we're discussing today, how intertwined and connected and the same they are as the ones that created the situation with Johnny Damage. So please, I hope you'll again review your program booklet from the 13th Annual Summit Against Racism, and I hope everyone will read the New People for the best news about which city council members are ready to co-sponsor good legislation and which ones are not. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Donald Walton, followed by Donald Clark. Donald Walton is not here. Donald Walton, followed by Donald Clark, and then Celeste Taylor.
Celeste is on her way.
Celeste is on her way.
Good evening. Councilman Burgess, Teresa Smith, Councilman Lavelle, and everyone else. I understand I came here, I had the invitation. I thank you for that by way of via the mail. I understand about the reform agenda as far as a legislature type thing, but I actually just have a statement for all of us, because I look around and I see mainly people over 21, and I always see this type of thing affect the young male. So the reform agenda, my message is for us. You know, they work with law enforcement and everyone. I work in the community, and one of the things, one of my principles that I live off of and I go by is education, education, education. And at one point in time, I never really respected law enforcement, okay? Until I got to understand what they have to go through and what angles, what trainings they go through. So one of the things I just want to express in coming here this evening, grown men, especially all, because I believe a man is a man first and foremost, is awareness and activeness in the community, having a relationship with God and his family, a decent relationship. Educate the youth about what they are dealing with when they are encountered by law enforcement. So we can start working together, you know, because you know the dilemma and a lot of the dynamics through the social history within the black community of how we view law enforcement. But that has to change. So those episodes of, I don't think the youngsters here, Mr. Jordan Miles, but I'm sure there's people here that know him. And I never got to meet him, but you know, I always look at like, it didn't kill you, it's gonna make you stronger. Here and then here, so you can help others. So I just want all of us older men, go back to your community and teach the youth so we won't have these things happen, because it could have been a lot worse. And it has happened, where a lot worse situations. So that's the only.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
The City Council. Racial profiling used to be an act of ignorance. Now it's $1 billion a year business. All over the city of Pittsburgh. You know that yourself. In the 9th district, look how the 9th district looks. More rundown, abandoned houses here than any part of the city. Do you think that we should live like that when the rest of the neighborhoods got better conditions? We pay taxes too. Our taxes are higher than Squirrel Hill. Our water bill is high. Our gas and light bill is high. Racial profiling, $1 billion a year business. We as the people need to come together. A unity of people will topple any government. Cairo, Egypt proved that. Everybody should think about that. Think of the future. You can't live in the future with your mailing address in the past. That's all I got to say.
Ms. Celeste Taylor is here. Ms. Celeste is not here. A.P. Jackson, followed by H.P. Jackson, followed by Elijah Bilal Muhammad. And the other thing is, please take your name and address first, and that won't count towards your time. Just gives us a record. Name and address, and start. Thank you.
H.P. Jackson, 6 Roselle Drive, zip code 15207, Pittsburgh. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have the opportunity to stand before the council because they have a job. And our job here as a community, being that we have the opportunity to be invited to present ourselves. We know brutality exists. I believe the law enforcement need time to go ahead and take some classes on anger management, basically, because what I've witnessed over on South Side, you know, that's not a black issue, all right? But Jordan Miles is a black issue, and being before time right now here in Pittsburgh, it's always been a hush-hush issue, and it's been closed in the closet. There's no racism. Racism do exist, but humanity also exists, okay? And we have to go ahead and transform our youth to know that, like, law enforcement is here to help, but there are people that has in a position of having power, and they abuse their authority, all right? And that's one thing that, like, we have to go ahead and really pay attention to, all right? Survival is one that we worry enough right now that we have to help ourselves in the community to go ahead and stop this here gangbanging. But we have an opportunity right now to present the council that the police have issues also. That's why I just requested anger management, all right? And what we need to go ahead and present with our youths, like adults like ourselves as being here, we should have more youth involved with this here presentation right now to let them know who are people that's representing us to go ahead and assist and go downtown and do what they have to do to go ahead and help us, all right? But one thing in line that I do have in mind for us to go ahead and carry with us, and I did quote one message to a couple people, and it's a book, Og Mandino, The Greatest Secret in the World. And one of his chapters is, I'll greet this day with love in my heart, for love is the greatest venture for all men and women. Muscles can split a shield and even destroy life, but only the unseen power of love can pierce the hearts of men. Until we master this art, we'd be no more than just use your imagination, because we see the corruption that's going on today in this world and in our neighborhoods. We have to go ahead and try to present spirituality. And that's one thing that we left out. And number one, I love my country. I'm a Marine. I'm a 100% disabled veteran, but I'm healthy, and I'm blessed to have the opportunity to go ahead and present this message to you. We need to go ahead and help one another and unify ourselves to go ahead and teach our youth what they have to go ahead and deal with, because they are our future. And we need to have more of them right here to pay attention to us and for what we're trying to do right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have
I say to the Honorable Reverend Burgess and the Honorable lady, I don't know your name, and you brother. And yes, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, which means may the peace of God be on you and his mercy and his blessing. And I want to address this to us all as human beings. Now, all this here that you got going is great, and I commend you for it. But we need to get back to our basics and understand that you can't legislate love. And understand that here you have the making of a slave. Willie Lynch, I know so many know the letter, but scared to mention it. This is how we were made slaves on the plantation in 1712. Made slaves, psychologically, taken from the knowledge of ourselves, and made to serve the white man as God. Fearing, not trusting no one but him, as we do today. And he said it would be perpetuated for tens, hundreds, even thousands of years, unless we, and a phenomenon occurred. Well, the phenomenon has occurred, and Almighty God, Allah, has liberated the African American, along with the slave master, who understands now that he's only a human being, as all the rest of us. And here are books, brothers and sisters, being Black History Month, all right, to bring us back into the knowledge of ourselves. Willie Lynch letter, Community of Self by Naim Akbar, Life, The Last Battlefield by Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad's son, Knowledge of Self, and breaking the chains and images of psychological slavery. We have to all do it together. All do it together, because we're all in it together. And once you come to understand that oppression is a sin against the love, he created us all to be his servants, and only his servants. Anytime you do anything less, all you're doing is giving up your freedom. You see, the police become our police when we take the responsibility of being ourselves, men and women, not males and females, and looking for somebody else to do it. What can you expect? I listen to the sirens every Friday and Saturday. It's like rhythm now, repetition. And I can see them being frustrated, having to come to do the work that we're supposed to be doing. But we're too busy partying, running after sensationalism and consumerism. What about spirituality? We're spirit. We're supposed to worship God in spirit. You have to cultivate it. Otherwise, you're just animals. Animals. That's where we are first until we come into the knowledge of ourselves as Adam. We have to return to Adam and have the strength to look outside of the paradigm. And I'm going to sum up with this. A wise mind changes often. A foolish mind never. A wise mind can play the part of a fool, but a fool can't play the part of a wise mind. So if at first you don't succeed, somebody help me out. No, read the instructions and you'll find out what I just told. Assalamu alaikum. And sorry for that.
Good evening. I am Maureen Cross, Golden 573 Cedar Place, Pittsburgh, PA 2211431, and I live in Homewood, Brushton, in the city of Pittsburgh, and Councilman Reverend Ricky Burgess is my councilman, and I thank you, sir. I thank the rest of you, the council people, for coming out, and all those representing the various council offices. This is important. Yesterday is history that we should learn from it. Tomorrow's a mystery, but what we do today is going to change tomorrow. And when I was concerned when that Act 91 came out, that the police could use their own discretion, and I thought, Lord have mercy on us. It's not about their discretion, particularly when they don't have the love that gentleman was talking about. They don't have the understanding he was talking about. They don't even look at us the way he was talking about. You have to deal with what we have. And what we have is the amendment to this bill. So I ask that you do support it completely. My councilman wrote it, so he supports it. And we just have to do this, people. We just have to do this. Going to grandma's house is a happy time. How in the world could you do something suspect? Leaving mama's house to go to grandma's house. That's the craziest thing in the world. And these great big men on this one person, so we know there are other elements going on here that cannot continue. We need to do things that are right, things that are going to uplift all of us, because when we do things that uplift all of us, we will indeed be lifted up together. I commend you for this bill. Anything else that we can do. I am a member of BPAC. I am founding president of Alleghenies. I am associate minister of St. James. I belong to Black and White Reunion and the Coalition Against Violence and a whole bunch of other things. I will get up an army to help you. Let us know what we can do. We support you. Thank you for stepping out for us. And don't let them turn you around. If they give you too much trouble, call Reverend Burgess and we'll come. We want this bill passed. God bless
you. Good evening, Council. Thank you for being with us in the community. As we said, the Council comes to the hood, and we're glad to have you. As you know, and some of you may know in the audience, that we had a very, two and a half or more hour presentation on Thursday about this proposed legislation. And we want to thank you, Reverend, for introducing it. We want to thank Councilman Lavelle for Thursday agreeing to co-sponsor it, and we hope Sister Teresa Kail-Smith will support it as well. We have other council persons who we think will be supporting it. I had the pleasure of talking to Teresa Miles last night, or yesterday afternoon. And this legislation that we're talking about, and the three pieces that have been passed, and for that we're thankful to Council. We wouldn't be here if it were not for the incident of January 12, 2010 in this community. My hope is, and I know Teresa Miles' hope is, and her mom, Pat Porter, that we don't have to have any more of these conversations. That we don't have to have any more incidents. When I talked to her yesterday, she shared with me, and I asked her tonight if it was okay to share this. Her son, and anyone in here who's met her son, you can see the love emulating from his face, from his mom's face, and from his grandmother's face. This is a family of love. This is an incident that should never have happened. 1 year plus later, he is still going to counseling. He is still going to counseling. An absolutely innocent young man, unarmed, no history of anything but positive accomplishments. And even if he had history, if he had done nothing, this incident should not have occurred. So we ask that you, and that you encourage your fellow council people, to look at this as a win-win for the city of Pittsburgh, for the council, for the police, and for the reputation of Pittsburgh, and even for the coffers of Pittsburgh, which have been hurt by far too many lawsuits. Some things just need to be done, and we hope that all of you agree with that, and that we will have a victory for our community and for police-community relations in Pittsburgh, hopefully for years and decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Burgess and Council. I'm Mark Ozark. I'm from 536 Ardmore Boulevard in Wilkinsburg. At last Thursday's Post Agenda, I represented Black and White Reunion. After the community volunteers spoke, FOP President O'Hara had the floor. Give and take was not permitted in the Post Agenda. I'd like to reply now to two of his comments. Mr. O'Hara stated concern about the public interpreting statistics on our own while citing himself as an expert. I was troubled. The experts the community brought to the Post Agenda and who crafted the amended bill included 2 law school professors, 2 practicing lawyers, and a police officer. They are hardly likely to misinterpret statistics wildly. Those of us seeking information will respect unbiased expertise. In a democracy, the public should be trusted. Even if some interpretations of the data arise that are far from mainstream thinking, they might be correct and result in improvements. Sometimes it takes an unindoctrinated observer to notice that the emperor has no clothes. Some public interpretations may be wrong and cause trouble. That is the price of open government democracy. Upholding the Constitution implies humbly accepting that risk, not claiming to know better. Compared to the alternative forms of government, that risk is worth taking. At the Post Agenda, I brought up Public Safety Director Huss's December mentioning of civil rights. I referred to online comments condemning Mr. Huss and supporting current law enforcement practices. Many comments appear to be overtly racist, and some to have been written by police officers. Rather than strongly repudiating that kind of support, about all Mr. O'Hara had to say was that the department isn't racist. I found that to be dismissive. I believe that racism is a problem, and not only because I hear about it as a member of the Black and White Reunion. As evidence, consider the 2010, not 1995, 2010, PIN racial sensitivity curriculum for police training and continuing education. It cannot have eliminated racism already. Also, community experts testified that perceptions of problems can be even more important than the problems themselves. If a substantial part of the population believes there is racial bias in policing, then there is a problem, one that information from the amended bill can address. Police opinions that disparage the public's ability and dismiss their concerns, foster or demand mistrust. As you heard the experts testify, mistrust reduces public safety, and the city wastes tax dollars in many ways. The community amendments to 2010-0234 squarely face the issues of trust, effectiveness, and public safety. I urge you to place them into the code. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Walker, and I reside at 856 Lillian Street, the Allentown section of Pittsburgh. In 1829, Sir Robert Peel, a member of British Parliament, established the first police department in London, England. Sir Robert, also known as the father of modern policing, developed 9 principles as a guide for police departments. One of Sir Robert's 9 principles, the police are the public and the public are the police, is a community policing concept that is based on goals to prevent crime, develop community partnerships, and is as relevant for police departments today as they were to his theory in the 1800s. With this being said, I would like to take this opportunity to support the proposal to amend Bill 2010-0234. I am here tonight in my capacity as the chair of the Independent Citizen Police Review Board. It is the board's privilege to offer advice on matters concerning police practices and their influence on the relations between the City of Pittsburgh citizens and its police. The original bill proposes to amend the duties of the Chief of the Bureau of Police by requiring the publication of an annual police service report, and also provides for the inclusion of certain information. I have also had the opportunity to review a comprehensive proposal of amendments to 2010-0234. I understand the proposal is the culmination of a community collaborative that has been working together since 2004. The community proposal is consistent with the standards adhered to by the Bureau of Police during the term of the consent decree between the City of Pittsburgh and the United States Department of Justice. The nature of this bill has been of interest to the CPRB for many years. Upon the termination of the consent decree, we directed our executive director to pursue our interests through research, analysis, engagement with community leaders and activists, and to do whatever else was needed to support an official effort to address many of the issues that are outlined in the community proposal. As a law enforcement professional by virtue of my 20 years as a police officer and as a professor of criminal justice at both Point Park University and the University of Pittsburgh, it is my opinion that the information described for public disclosure in this proposal, such as the number of pedestrian and traffic stops initiated by beat officers and officers in marked or unmarked vehicles, the reasons for these stops and their outcome, or that all officers complete a written report each time they exercise the use of force or conduct a search, will not impose a burden on officers because they are already reporting these activities and the data is currently collected by the Bureau of Police. It is our position that the safeguards and enhanced public disclosure embodied in the community's proposal exceeds the provisions of Bill 2010-0234 in its current form and will more effectively inform the public while acknowledging the productivity of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. In closing, I respectfully encourage members of City Council to adopt the community's proposal to amend Bill 2010-0234 in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Faith Skinning, followed by Lewis Love.
Good evening, members of council, and thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Mr. Burgess' legislation. My name is Faith Stenning. I'm a resident of Highland Park. Our police officers, our Pittsburgh police officers, are well trained to think quickly, move quickly, and bravely face dangerous situations which they encounter daily. Their duty is to deal with situations which most of us would shrink from. Now I have a question. I want to know, what were 3 adult male officers thinking when on one cold evening during a January evening, a little over a year ago, these officers saw a solitary, slightly built male cutting across lawns along Tioga Street. What happened to the officers' minds when they saw this youth running from them? What happened to their training and judgment to release such a frenzy of violence when an unarmed adolescent ran from them? This youth, you know whom I'm speaking of, Jordan Miles, saw 3 adult males, strangers, get out of a car and go after him. He felt threatened and ran for his life. The officers saw a young man resisting arrest, a potential lawbreaker. These 3 officers were not facing a dangerous armed mob. No, one kid, my son, your son. Why did the officers lose a sense of reality so that they tore out some of his braids and beat him so badly he needed to be treated at a hospital? The public needs more accountability from our police forces, and Mr. Burgess' legislation is one way of achieving that. Thank you.
My name is Louis Mudd. I reside at 6523 Jackson Street, Island Park, PA. Honorable Reverend Ricky Burgess, City Council. I believe it's not just the City Council. I mean, it has to be the mayor. The mayor has to be included in this too. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Sarah Giannatis, followed by Craig Stevens.
Hi guys, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Sarah Giannotti. I reside at 3944 Monroeville Boulevard, Monroeville, PA 15146. The reason why I came out tonight is I remember where I was the night that this news story first broke. Speaking of Jordan Miles, I was working at home. My little one, who's here in attendance with me, was sitting at home doing homework, and something in the background, I had the news on very quietly, caught my ear. Turned to the TV, turned it up, and what I saw disgusted. It just offended every single one of my sensibilities that this was going on, just seeing this news story. I knew at that point, sitting there weeping in my living room, that there was something that I was going to have to do to prevent this from happening to any one of our children. Anybody in here who has children can only imagine what Teresa was going through this entire thing. I am a member of the Alliance for Police Accountability. The thing that I love about this proposed legislation is it's not making this an us against them situation. Obviously, there's something broken if we have a situation where the community feels like they can't trust the police feels like they can't trust the community. This reform right here that Councilman Burgess is putting forth, this can only help. Nothing in this entire legislation is going to hurt. So right now we have a situation where we can try to mend some of these broken sensibilities between the communities and the police. Less than a year ago, everybody's forwarding around an email. We now live in one of the most livable cities in the entire United States, in the city of Pittsburgh. I don't think if you would ask anybody who personally knows Jordan Miles, they will agree with that statement. But I do think that if something like this gets passed, this is a first step of many steps that need to be taken. And I think that this will get us on board to be able to say, this is my city. I'm proud of it. I live here. I want to raise my family here. And this is, I think, what I hope you guys can get behind this bill, that we can get this passed and get moving in the right direction instead of continually looking back and saying, I can't believe this happened. Why is this happening? It is what it is situation. It is a what can we do situation. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to read this, looking it over, and hopefully being behind it. Thank you.
Next we have Craig Stevens, followed by Sarah Campbell.
Good evening, council members, staff, and community members. My name is Craig Stevens. I live at 6836 B Street. I'm a neighbor of Homewood and Point Breeze. There are a number of reasons I'm here tonight. For one, when I arrived in Pittsburgh, I came with an interesting story from an African-American gentleman who had actually played briefly with the Steelers, and he said to me, you know, I have an education, I was known in the community, but I found this Pittsburgh to be a community where African Americans were not welcome, and I didn't stay there and I moved on. And that struck a chord in me because I've always felt important that people respect each other and that racial relations historically have been the deepest divide in our country, and it's something we're still trying to resolve to this day. I have a son who grew up in this community and had many friends, and a good number of them were African American, and he had too many stories of leaving school in high school and walking around and later driving around with African American friends, being pulled over or harassed by police, and being told to just stand aside while they pushed around his African American friends and threatened them and maybe never even arrested them. And in some ways, the sting was just as bad, if not worse, that you could be harassed like that every single day of the year. There are many Jordan Miles. They just didn't get beaten up to the point that everyone got to know him. There are too many Jordan Miles in this community. And I wouldn't like to be a police officer because I would be put in the position of being the face of authority for this city. And what I have to wonder is, why haven't our elected officials, not you as city council members, where are the corporate leadership? Why hasn't there been an outcry for them that such a thing could happen in this city? And this is not the kind of city we want to live in. And we want to reward police officers for being, caring, sensitive, but also tough when they have to be. Why hasn't there been that outcry? Why does the African American community have to come out and be put in the position of well, you just don't understand? Councilman Smith, you mentioned in the hearing that you've been talking to police officers. That needs to be done. I know some people in the police department. Knowing these gentlemen, in this case, I don't believe they supported what these officers did, but they haven't necessarily spoken up. I would love to see police officers come out and speak up, but they have an FOP that represents them that says things like, well, we already report all of these things. So what's the big deal? This is just onerous. If you already report many of these things, good. Let's make them public. Let's make them transparent. And so everyone can look and see who's being stopped on the street, for what reasons, what are the outcomes, was there an arrest, were there charges against a civilian or a police officer, because that can happen also, as in this case it should. And to sum up, that's as much as I can say at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sarah Kail, followed by Harry Walker.
Good evening. Okay. Councilman Burgess and fellow council members, I support this amendment, the bill that Councilor Burgess have submitted. This bill has, and I have to thank you, Councilman, the research that has been done to produce this bill. This is not a frivolous activity here. We have all contributed. I have lived here in this community since 1947, before some of you were even born. I can remember the time when we almost had to put signs on our male sons in order that they would not be picked up. None of those were blessed. They were blessed that they didn't have to go through what Jordan went through. As the chair of the Public Safety Committee here in Homewood, and also of the Zone 5 Public Safety, we meet every month with the commanders of Zone 5. But you got to think in terms of the administration and what the administration also says to the officers before they hit the streets. This is something that we got to look at. It's the behavior. And behavior, anyone's behavior, you can't put chains on it. This bill will help us, not only help us, but it will help the administration of the police department to do a better job. I want to say that the resources, Reverend Burgess, that you brought to the table for the council meeting, it showed that what we're asking is the same processes that are being handled in other cities and are working out well. We keep saying that we have a livable city, but a livable city for whom? I would like for this to be a livable city for all of us. And we have to remember that justice delayed is justice denied. I can understand why they're holding off, and I will not say publicly why that it's not been resolved. But we're going to pay a lot of money because of the fact that you're putting police in the community that really are not fit to be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Harry Walker, 566 Sickle Street, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, your district, Councilman Burgess. First of all, I'd like to express my appreciation for you for organizing this meeting and also for putting forth this important legislation, and say that unequivocally I personally support it, and I hope everyone else in this room in this community supports it as well. My background is that I was born and raised in East Liberty, Homewood, Brushton, East Hills, and went to Westinghouse High School, and I've just gotten back in town recently, lived other places. My background is in business administration, economic development, and city management. And I'd like to say that my experiences tell me that you can't just look at crime, or you can't just look at police behavior out of context. The way I'm also a former Vietnam era veteran, and I'm also a former policeman. And I can tell you this, power only respects power. When you give somebody a badge and a gun, you're giving them a lot of power. And you have to have power to balance it. Our democracy was put forth on the basis of a balance of power. That's why we have 3 branches of government. But often policemen believe that they are power unto themselves. And I speak from experience. So they have to be held accountable. Remember, we pay for them. They're supposed to work for us. They're here to protect and serve us, not themselves. And I know they have a union contract, and the Fraternal Order of Police is nothing but their union. And they do a lot of things to prevent the proper administration of justice. But that doesn't mean that we have to not work for justice. And people in your position, city council people, the mayor, others, all need to step forward on this. Those of us back in the day remember me as Butchie Walker, and I just wanted to add a few other comments. We need to turn our community around. My experiences are these things don't happen in wealthy communities. I've never seen it or heard of it in my life. They happen in our community, communities like this, because there's a sense of powerlessness. So people think that they can have a badge and a gun and just run rampant, do whatever they want to do. We have to express our power. And I've worked with police. I've even managed the police department. I've looked at studies. The number 1 variable that's associated with crime is blight. When you drive through our streets, it's a blighted community. Not every neighborhood within the district is, but many are. I know this area well. I was the paper boy here. I was the ebony and jet boy. You got to bring this place back by community development. Empower the people, get some jobs back in here. All the things they said about educating the youth, do it. Get our youth involved and turn this community around. We'd all appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Brandy Fisher. I reside at 410 Bill Road, Penn Hills, 15235. I born and raised in Wilkinsburg, ran around in Homewood, and I'm also a member of the Alliance for Police Accountability, which was started because of the incident that occurred with Jordan Miles. The reason why I think this legislation is extremely important to be passed is because I care about the youth in the community. The fact that Jordan Miles was a very young man bothers me to my core. The young people in the community should not have to walk out of their homes and worried about being looked at as a criminal. At the last hearing, the post-agenda, afterwards, I had the privilege of speaking with Mr. Dan O'Hara and myself. I walked away from that conversation with the understanding that when police officers stroll through high-crime communities such as Homewood, and they see individuals walking through the neighborhood after a certain hour of the night, they assume that they are up to criminal activity. I walked away from that conversation with the understanding that although all officers receive the same training, when an individual is arrested or dealt with in, let's say, the South Side, the officer may handle them differently than they would if they were in Homewood. At the post-agenda, Mr. Dan O'Hara mentioned that he was just involved in an altercation where he had a situation where a person was resisting arrest and he was injured. And I thought about that, and it reminded me of Jordan Miles, in which the same situation was that he was resisting arrest. But I did not see the same compassion. I did not see the same results as Mr. O'Hara described from the man that he arrested on the South Side. So what I would say that means is that there's a different mentality when a police officer is strolling in a neighborhood where there's a high crime area and the community is a lower socioeconomic status. To prove that statement to be true, I have no data. All I have is my conversation with the vice president of the FOP. All I have is Jordan Miles. All I have is Joni Gamage and the many other people who have been at the hands of the police in a very negative way. I have no proof besides pictures, but I have no data. And so I would say that this legislation is needed to either prove or disprove the fact that this actually is going on. Thank you.
How you doing there? I'm going to change up the conversation. I'm going to broaden it a little bit. I'm not originally from Pittsburgh. I was originally from Malakopa, where in my younger days, I was heavily into politics. Not the knocking on the door type of politics. I'm talking about the behind the door, closed doors politics, the type of politics that probably would curl some of you people's head if you knew what went on. So I'm going to look at this from a political perspective. You know.
For allowing us to be here today. My name is Shanice Moore. I'm from the Stanton Heights area, and I'm 35 years old. And the reason I stated my age is because I feel like I am part of a lot of the generation that is perpetuating a lot of this violence in our city. And I'm really appalled by it. And I'm surprised that council, maybe you are, but your aggressiveness for me is not vigorous enough. It's appalling, you know, Congresswoman, God bless her for her speedy recovery. But people are getting shot in their heads every day nearly here in Pittsburgh. And I think that something should be done. I mean, we get a bleep on the news about that 5 seconds and then it's over, but it's just as appalling to our community that these kids are going home. At my daughter's age, she's 9 years old and she's in the crowd today, and they don't have fathers or mothers to go home to, and that's important. It's a lot part of the problem. Also, I wanted to state that along with Jordan Miles, I also have a public safety issue concern. My brother and along with another member of Mount Eric Church were killed right here in the streets of Homewood on May 25th of 2006. The city to us, the families involved, Michelle Rankin, Jerome Smith, which is my brother, we feel let down. We did sue the city of Pittsburgh, but not for money, but for justice. And justice only did we sue the city for, because those are family members that we can't have back. Jordan Miles is alive, and I understand he probably has the same struggles, and he's grateful to be here because he could have lost his life as well. So for that, I came out today to express to each and every one of you to go out in your communities and make sure that the little kid kicking, you know, your neighbor's garbage can over is not to be ignored. That stuff, those are signs that, okay, you go over, it takes a village to raise a community, to raise a child. You go out there and you direct that child. It's not something you can shut your door on and say, it's not my can, I don't care. Those things turn into bigger things. So you have to get out in your community and make a difference. Whether it's a kid standing this tall or a little 2-year-old, nurture that child. They may not get it at home, but hearing it from that neighbor makes a difference. That's a lot of the things that we lack now, that people are not involved. People are not concerned anymore because it's not happening in their household. My brother was a member of Mount Airy, was not a gangbanger. However, the violence came to him. The police were chasing someone else for a taillight. A simple taillight, and my brother is dead. Michelle is dead, and they are not coming back. That's not what you chase people for. We need justice.
We have Beth Pittsburgh, followed by David Tessitore.
Good evening, members of council. Thank you for convening this public hearing. My name is Beth Pittinger, and I work with the Citizen Police Review Board. The legislation that is in its current form, 2010-0234, did bring up issues that were very critical to enhancing the information available to the public. Your proposal, Reverend Burgess, was taken very seriously by a number of people in the community, who then came back to you recently and offered you a proposal to amend by substitution 2010-234. We've heard a lot of different concerns expressed here tonight, but the fact is that this legislation will open up the work done by the City of Pittsburgh Police in a quantified way and disclose that information to the public so that they may analyze and evaluate and consider for themselves what the reflection of the police work in the neighborhoods is. There's a great deal of emphasis on the demographics and the geographics, but that brings it back home so that each neighborhood or within each council district can evaluate for themselves the type of police service coming into their area. But the proposal went a little further and made recommendations with regard to controlling or specifying certain expectations for officers when they are off duty. It made a recommendation that there be a check and a balance inserted into arrests for aggravated assaults on a police officer when the arresting officer is also the alleged victim of the alleged assault. And it adopted many of the provisions that were contained in the original consent decree that the Bureau has followed. Each chief, since the decree was implemented, has committed to continuing to follow those standards. And this proposal is just putting it into form in the city code that will assure its continuity and consistency through any administrative change that there may be. We certainly appreciate you putting this forth. Councilman Lavelle, thank you for becoming a co-sponsor to the original bill. Councilwoman Smith, thank you for being here tonight. It is, I believe, in your subcommittee, Public Safety. We did hear from the President of the Fraternal Order of Police last week at the Post Agenda, and there were some things that were suggested there that should concern everybody who cares about the relationship between the community and the Bureau of Police. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Tessitore, and I've been working with both the councilman here and the group that's been dealing with this project. One of the things that I found very relevant in a way was an NPR report that came on yesterday talking about interrogation in Iraq and by one of the top interrogators, and he was talking about his techniques compared to the cowboy techniques that we've heard so much about, and with the torture and the various means of interrogation that are extenuating. And his approach was to deal with the people with respect and approach the situation with a calmness instead of cowboy techniques, and he was the one who uncovered Zakawi and has uncovered so many other things by doing it this way rather than the cowboy techniques. And it just struck me how much that paralleled what David Harris was talking about in the wisdom of good policing instead of using cowboy techniques. Now, I'm not saying that all police officers are doing that, but it is easy to drift to the simple deduction that, oh, well, this person looks like, therefore maybe, and go ahead with, instead of using good, rigorous practices that I think we need to have the improvements in the legislation that the citizens have been working on so that we can work to create a better training process and implement a lot of these standards. I can say that there was nobody involved with the process who was against having good police activities. Everybody there wanted there to be effective policing. And I am very proud of all of the people, including with council and et cetera, that I've been working with in the past year on this process. And I hope that the rest of the council will join with councilmen and those who sponsor it, and that we would have this happen, because I think it's an improvement that the entire community needs. Thank
you. My name is Yvonne F. Brown, and I live in the Hill District. I am 64 years old. I was born down in where the Civic Arena is, on Epiphany Street. When I hear people say that this is the most livable city in the United States, or wherever they're comparing it to, I laugh. Because I'm 64 years old, and if I see a police car, I get scared. When I was 63, the police made me lay on the ground, handcuffed my daughter. Her hand was hurt. Even the children, you could see children were in the car. I called, my daughter lives in Northview. It was giant people, tall people trying to attack me and my daughter. 4 times they came on my porch. We called the police once, and I said, well, we're going in the house because they attack people. He said, you can be outside. I didn't go outside, but my grandbabies was out there. They came on the porch. I called the police. He came back, and he said he wasn't going to babysit me. He told me and my daughter, if we called the police again, we were going to jail. So what I did, but I had seen Chief Harper and told him we were being terrorized outside the City Council, and he had called them. So I called back down, and I said, Chief Harper said, you are to take a police report. See, because you don't understand, when they do these things, they're in our neighborhood. This is happening to us. I was behind my car on Dinwiddie, and waiting for OnStar to open the door. That task force, the ones that grabbed Jordan, came past us. I didn't know there was task force. They had no upcast. The young man said, that's task force. I'm scared. I'm looking straight ahead. We look around here. Here's a big bald-headed white man with hair, just a goatee. And he's beating the car. And he's screaming and he's hollering. And I sit back and I said, we're going to die. We're going to be killed. Do you understand? I am 64 years old and I have been chased just like Jordan. My niece was arrested because she had 2 specks that the policeman said was marijuana. She agreed, she had smoked some earlier, but 2 specks on a thing. She went to jail. They went through every red light. Even down by the Civic Arena. She's from out of town. She said Annie Vaughn. They went through every light. Do you understand why we need for the police to have, they need to have cameras or walking, some kind of way that whenever they approach a person, maybe it comes on. You need to see what they are doing to us. I'm 64 years old. Look how little I am. But yet still they can make me lay on the ground. My grandbaby's seen that. And you wonder why the kids are afraid of the police?
Good evening. My name is Celeste Taylor. I reside at 7127 Thomas Boulevard. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I do apologize for being late. What a wonderful turnout. It matters. I'm the director of BPEP's Regional Equity Monitoring Project. My friend and brother in the Civil Rights Movement, Tim Stevens, and others were a part of the post agenda. And at one point, he asked, he stated that it didn't matter how many people showed up to the post agenda or were at public hearings because people should just do the right thing. That is a world that I would like to live in and have Jordan and our other children live in, but that is not the world that we live in. It matters that you're here. It matters so much that you're here, because if you weren't here, they would say that we don't care about our own children.
Right, right.
I am the mother of 4 sons. I've been doing this work as an activist, as a so-called professional, but it is my personal connection to this issue that makes me stay in it until we win it. This legislation is just a continuation of the consent decree that dealt with racial profiling. The community advocates that have met with the lawyers and Councilman Burgess for over a year have worked so hard to perfect this. It should be done. There should be no question that we need this. So much about government and policies, administration of justice, is about fairness. It's about making sure our democracy works for all people. I looked into the eyes of Teresa and felt her pain. When I look at the young people in Egypt asking for their liberation and freedom, they asked this one woman about how she felt. She said, I felt like it was all my sons out there. That's how I feel when I look at Jordan or any other child that is abused. This is about the policies so we can track. Make sure that this is a professional police force. That's all this is. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Edwin Everhart. Address is 4805 Ellsworth Avenue. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, esteemed members of council. I'm coming to you today as the coordinator of Amnesty International Local Group 39, which is the community Amnesty International group for Pittsburgh. We've been around for about 30 years. And Amnesty International is a worldwide movement for human rights generally, for universal principles. And I'm not going to say anything tonight from the perspective of Amnesty about this particular law, but I'll say things that are specific enough that you can draw conclusions. So just generally, we ought to note that violence is a violation of human rights, and extrajudicial punishment carried out by the government or anyone else is a violation of universal human rights. And that shouldn't be happening here, it shouldn't be happening anywhere in the world. And that's the sort of thing that all of us are opposed to. Oh dear, it's much shorter than I thought. Anyway, if you want to know more about Amnesty's position, talk to me later, but thank you very much, and generally we're in favor of this sort of thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Remember, everyone, you just have 1 minute, so be quick.
My name is Richard Roberts. I live in Munhall. I used to live up in Belmore Gardens.
I've heard that a lot of the council people that probably aren't here, there's an awful lot of police officers that live in their areas. I hope there isn't some level of intimidation to the point to make sure that they say what the police officers want to hear. But with the Jordan Miles situation, I asked one of the police officers that I know, I said, if that's what they did to Jordan, what would they do to me? As you can see, I'm not as small as Jordan. I'm twice as big as Jordan. And he dropped his head down and said that they probably would have shot me. And it's a shame because Jordan didn't do anything. Anyone who lives in the community knows when you see one person walking down the street, there's not an awful lot to be fearful of. But when you see 5 or 6 of them walking down the street, that's a whole other ballgame because only one of them actually is the badass. The rest of them are the flunkies. So we need to make sure, and the community needs to step up, and we need more men, not males. We got too many males out there. We need men.
Council. My name is Robert Bay. I reside at 7320 Susquehanna Street, living in Homeland, 58 years old, 26 years in construction. And I want to say that when the police become judge and jury, we got a problem. When I was coming up, we had tough police, we respected them. Homeland Avenue, we respected them. We had guys on the hill like Mason. We had Batman and Robin on the hill. We had Homewood, we had JR. And they was tough men, but they was fair. See? And you can't just define somebody, be judge and jury, and say, well, he looks like this and he looks like that. You know, I'm a man fighting against destruction, fighting against drugs and social disorders. You know, and everybody's got a story. And I engage them young people all the time. I've been 5 years in Wilkinsburg, 5 years in Clare. And speaking to them youngsters, and I've talked to some of the ones that looked like they was tough, but they really wasn't tough. They just wanted me to speak to them. And I'm glad of that. I'm glad that you're here, Reverend.
Council members. My name is Chris Zurowski. I live at 5541 Darlington Road, Pittsburgh 15217. I'm a candidate for City Council for Doug Shields' seat. Thanks, Mr. Stevens, for encouraging me to attend, and thanks also for inviting me, Mr. Jackson from Hazelwood. I appreciate it. 2 aspects of the proposed legislation that I like. The idea of regulating our law enforcement. We regulate the manufacture of our goods, our products, to ensure consumer safety. We need to regulate the creation, the manufacture of our law enforcement to ensure public safety. The other aspect I like is the requirement to divulge information. I've been a newspaper reporter years back at the Courier, did an internship at the McKeesport Daily News, and I covered federal court for the Trib. It's all about information. It's public safety. Everything needs to be public. It needs to come out in the open. I also have a personal aspect to this. My father was the lawyer for Brentwood Borough when the Johnny Gamage incident happened. My dad was on the right side of that fiasco, and he worked like hell to clean up the police department. I'm following up on that. Thank you.
Hello, that meeting goes real quick. My name is Lee Hurds. I live in 909 Franklin Avenue, Wilkinsburg, PA. Very, very quickly, when I was about 6 years old, I was in my grandmother's room and I was looking for candy. And I pulled out an old newspaper that had only been several years old at that time. And I flipped through and I was horrified by what I saw. It was Emmett Till. I'm 46 years old now. And last year, I'm in my study and I turn around and I look at the television and I see Jordan Miles' face, and the only thing I see is Emmett Till. And in 40 years, this is how far we've come. Now these ain't some good old boys down in the bayou or down in some county in Georgia. These are our police officials doing this. Now I think the police have made some steps and things of that nature, but you guys, there has to be some remedy for this. I'm like Celeste, I have 4 sons. They're all grown. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Councilman Burgess and the rest of the council. Thank you for coming here tonight. And as you well know, Reverend, we had our disagreements in the past on how we should deal with police accountability and so on and so forth. But I'm a fair enough man to give you, commend you when you started the ball rolling on what I feel is the first step in getting a renewed relationship with our community. This needs to have been done a long time ago. But I'm here to tell you tonight, I'm going along with this with reservation, because the root of the African-American problem is we need jobs for our youth. And we need them as of yesterday. You got the president talking about these green jobs that's coming, to communities. We need to put money in job training and have our youth be prepared for that. So keep them off the corner. Keep them away from police brutality or whatever might happen when you indulge in, police situation. So if you would stop there, you'd be surprised of what can happen on a good result, positive result job. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Reverend Eugene Downing. I come tonight representing the 6 Mount Zion Church, the corner of Shetland, Lincoln, and Lincoln Larimer. And I'm supportive of this legislation tonight, particularly because as a pastor, part of my responsibility is helping to hold young men accountable for their actions, their behaviors, their conduct, and how they treat their fellow citizens. And I believe it's very difficult to maintain that line of accountability with the young men that I serve if they feel that there's no accountability for those who serve their communities. So I'm grateful for your service tonight and having crafted this legislation, and I hope you all support this bill. God bless you.
Hello, my name is Brett Kaloyan, and I live at 1420 Hawthorne Street in Stanton Heights. While I applaud you for this legislation, I want to point out that transparency is nothing without accountability, and this city has a real problem with disciplining and firing problem police officers. One of the major problems is that discipline is currently conducted in-house. There's no public accountability except for the Citizens Police Review Board, and Council has virtually ensured that they are powerless to force any changes with the police department. Further, we see lawsuits constantly being settled. We do not see those lawsuits going forward into the courts. If those lawsuits went into the courts, the police officers would be forced to admit publicly wrongdoing, and when the job eventually went to the arbiter would be able to fire those problem police officers. In 2008, we had a drunken police officer off duty accidentally shoot an innocent civilian. That man still has his job. Criminal charges were not able to be brought against him. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Council, community. My name is Bob Maddock. I live at 3826 East Street, Pittsburgh 15214. I have been a member of the Pittsburgh Interfaith Impact Network since it's been in existence. I've been an officer of that organization the last 5 years. We're an organization of 35 plus faith communities, most in the inner city of Pittsburgh. When we had our action toward the end of last year, the police issue really was dealing with gun violence. But unless the community knows that the police are accountable, unless the community has reason to trust the police to be fair, the plague of gun violence will never be eliminated in this city. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amanda J. I live at 272 38th Street, 15201. I support the legislation. I hope that moving towards transparency is going to happen. I think that the only people opposed to transparency are those who are corrupt or abusive or don't serve the people. And I also think that, think about accountability a lot, and in order to have a system of accountability, we can't have any special people. Like, the special people aren't going to be accountable to us. So if this legislation can help to create a system where either we feel like we are special people or police officers feel like they're part of us, then maybe this legislation can help do that. I don't know.
Before you start the clock, I have a question. On the program, it says you may speak up to 3 minutes, no registration required. Did that change?
That program was not produced by City Council. Our rules are you have to register for 3 minutes. If you do not register, you have 1 minute to speak. You have 1 minute to speak.
Who produced this?
I suppose EPEP did.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I thought this came with you. Okay, well, I'll break mine down. Good evening. My name is Lucille Prater-Holiday, and I am a resident of Homewood, and I'm also a candidate for City Council in District 9. I would like to say that I would like to see Bill 234 passed, but we do have a public safety crisis in our neighborhoods, and without leadership that leads to appropriate and effective relations between our police force and the community, we are going to continue spinning our wheels and going nowhere. This is a time for leadership. We need someone who will make it their one full-time job to work with community members, to work with their fellow members of council, and to work with the state to come up with real, permanent, and effective solutions. We deserve to have high expectations about what we as a community can accomplish when we bring more voices into the process and work together. I'd like to thank council for the opportunity to speak here, and I'd like to thank everyone here for taking the time to be here to speak and to take an active role in making our neighborhoods safer and better places to live. And yes, there are too many Jordan Miles in District 9. Thank you.
Now we have, is there any other person? Seeing no other speakers tonight, we want to have members of council give their remarks, and I'll give some concluding remarks, starting with Councilman Lavelle.
Thank you. In the interest of time, because I actually have one more meeting I need to try to stop past in my district, I'll be very brief and state that I support the legislation as written. I do want to publicly thank Reverend Burgess for his year-long of work, and along with the other organizations that have been assistants in drafting this. It's a good piece of legislation. I do support it in its entirety. There may be one or two things minorly that need tweaked, and I'll certainly be willing to assist with that. But at the very beginning, Reverend Bolden asked a very important question, and she asked, tell us what we can do and what can be done, and let us know if you're needed of assistance. Most of you here this evening are probably constituents of Reverend Burgess. And thus, he's heard your concerns, he understands your issues. I also am here this evening to understand your issues, as well as Councilwoman Smith, but there are those of our colleagues that are unfortunately not here this evening. So I don't want you to think that coming here and showing up this evening, while a very critical step, and Ms. Taylor is absolutely right when she said it means a lot. It means a tremendous amount that you all took the time to be here this evening. But I would also provide you with some advice and say there's a couple more steps that this legislation will take before it's passed. And I agree with someone who said earlier, this shouldn't be that complicated. A lot of work has been into this. This should actually be rather simple to have passed, but it may not be. And so I would just implore you to please take the time to send an email to myself and my colleagues, to call our respected offices and voice your concerns. And don't let your efforts simply die here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lavelle. I'll mostly make comments about some of the things I've heard here tonight. I don't know why some of the council members are not here, but I will say this, that I do know that if Council President Harris had the opportunity to come, she would have been here. Whether she agreed or disagreed with this legislation, she would come and tell you that to your face. That's one thing you can say about Council President Harris, is that she's not afraid of controversy. And this is a hot issue. I mean, there's passion on both sides of this legislation. And I myself represent a district that has a large number of police officers that reside in my district. But I'm still here because I want to hear your concerns, and I'm always open to the opportunity of having a discussion that includes more people. And that's something that that Reverend Burgess and I have talked about, is inviting people to a larger meeting. So we work well together. We understand that there needs to be a broader conversation. There needs to be the police officers at the table, the community at the table, and interested parties to make sure that we are addressing the larger issues in this community. And I can't tell you enough what a difficult job our officers have and the respect I have for them. But I also understand the concerns that were raised here tonight. I think they're only going to be resolved not just through legislation, but I think they're going to be resolved with conversations. And if we're not willing to have those very difficult, very uncomfortable conversations, we'll never resolve the issues. I think that jobs are something that we work very hard on in our district. We make sure that we employ our youth in our community. We've gone from employing 30 children last year, 60 children, 30 the first year I was in office, 60 last year, and now we're opening an employment center for our kids and a computer training center. I know that education and opportunity is something that will really help us build relationships with our youth in the community. But if we're not bringing them in for programming, we're not doing enough for our kids. So for me, the youth are something that I care passionately about, but I think if we want to really care about our kids, we have to open up the opportunity for a dialogue with our youth and with our police officers. And I'm willing to do that with Reverend Burgess and with his lead on this issue. This is an issue I know he cares passionately about his community. We're here, I know this is the second time we've been here in a year, I believe, for the legislation that Reverend Burgess is putting forth for his community, and I know that he wants nothing more than to make changes, and I'm confident that he's making some of those changes in the community. So I want to thank him for being here and inviting us to Homewood. This is a beautiful church, and I want to thank you for hosting us here. And I hope this isn't just the end of this. I hope that we have continuing conversations in Homewood and in other areas. I tell people all the time, my family lived where the Civic Arena is currently, on Raleigh Avenue. And when they tore down the arena, we were displaced. So my mother still lives in the Robinson, Fifth Avenue street area. So I care passionately about the communities, but I think that it has to be all communities that are involved. And like I said, it's not an issue just relevant to Homewood. It is an issue that there are issues that need to be addressed, not just in Homewood, but across the city of Pittsburgh, and quite honestly, in Allegheny County. I think that we just have to have a broader discussion. I'm looking forward to Reverend Burgess leading that discussion. So thank you very much for having us here tonight. I could go on and on. Like Councilman LaBelle's time may be limited, but I could go on and on about this issue. So thank you.
I want to say a few words of thank you. Certainly thank you for the council members who are present tonight and took time in their busy schedule to come here and listen to you directly. We're thankful for the staffs of the other council members who could not be here, who sent their staff as representative. We're also grateful to have with us our very able and professional clerk, Linda Wassler Johnson, who has come herself to be part of this meeting. We want to thank the people from PCTV who have generously given their time so they could record this session, and this session could be replayed on the city channel, so it will go city-wide. Last but not least, I want to thank the great pastor of the Shiloh Community Baptist Church, Reverend Hubert Hutchinson. He has opened his doors and allowed us to use his audio equipment and place cameras and his feed and all of this at his own expense. He is a great preacher, a great prophet, and a great community leader, and we're just grateful for his leadership and to be here. Last but not least, we're grateful for each and every one of you who will come out tonight. Some of you probably know, and though she does not like necessarily the limelight, that Jordan's mother is here tonight and has been at all of the public meetings that we've talked about this legislation. We are still, as a community, in prayer for her son. Yes. We are still in prayer for her son, because he's not just her son, he is all of our sons. All of our sons, and we are praying for him. I agree that I worked with the BPEP and all the people who supported the Urban League, the NAACP, all the organizations, that we would do something together so that we could help to lift up police accountability, to give a transparent view of their activity. And so I ask that you would continue to support this legislation by calling your elected representatives, send emails. Now, this bill will come up next Wednesday, February 23rd, 2011. That will give a week, it'll give enough time to get a response from the Chief of Police and the Public Safety Director. We also hope to get a written response from the Law Department, but it would be good for those of you who are interested in this piece of legislation if you would come to City Council next Wednesday at 10 o'clock at our Standing Committee's meeting. That's February 23rd, 2011, and let your voices be heard. There's a public comment section before we begin, and you can come down and let your voice be heard. I think that all minds are clear. Again, I am just so grateful for you taking time out to come together, that we can stand together, because united we stand, divided we fall. And I will see all of you, and if anyone wants to chat privately, I will be around after the meeting to talk to you one-on-one. This meeting of City Council is now hereby adjourned.
Give us a prayer, man, before we go. Give us a prayer. Yeah. You're not allowed to do that?
I mean, I can't. I'm not going to say no. Lord, with thy spirit, we pray now that you would dismiss us from this place, never from your sight. Bless our community. Bless Jordan Miles and his family. Now be with us as we leave this place. Lord, we are praying that you would transform our community. We want to be a better people. We want to live in a better place. And we want to all live together as brothers and sisters together. Dismiss us from this place, but never from your sight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.
How you doing?